I want to push you that when you're thinking about what freebie to use, remember that general framework. Don't be thinking, am I giving too much? Most entrepreneurs should be saying, am I giving enough?
Welcome to the Online Genius Podcast, where host and renegade thinking beer brewing lawyer turned online entrepreneur Bobby Klinck proves that building and protecting your online genius doesn't have to be rocket science. Bobby and his expert guests break down online marketing and the legal stuff so you can stop sweating the small stuff and get back to building your amazing business. Now, here's your host, Bobby Klinck.
Hey there. Welcome to episode 91 of the Online Genius Podcast. I'm your host, Bobby Klinck, and I am really excited for today's episode because today we're going to be talking about something that I really love, something I think that's very important, and something that I know is really, an area that a lot of my followers and listeners need to focus on. And so that's why I'm doing today's episode. Today, we are doing a refresher on list building. Now, I did a list building episode. It's been almost a year now, I think. But today, we're going to be talking about it over again. And I'm going to be talking about it in a very specific way and with a kind of a specific framework that I now use for list building. So the reason why I wanted to talk about list building is I've done a couple of surveys over the last couple of months. I did one, I can't remember when I first did one, but I did one, I guess, at a quiz that I had a while back that people went through, and I could see the results. And from the results, I could see that most of the people on my list who were at least completed the quiz weren't consistently adding people to their email list, at least not in any sizable numbers. And I've recently been doing a survey using the ask method. And again, what I found is that getting an email list and building a list and list building and all of those things, those are concerns that my list has. Those are concerns, those are things, those are struggles that people who follow me are dealing with. It's a pain point. And so I wanted to address it in this episode. And it's something that I did within the Fans First Society, in my membership site. I did a training on this and people got some good results. And so with that, I wanted to come and bring the same general concepts to this podcast and help listeners here to really kind of get their list building going. And I want to stress this because I am a true believer that one of the best measures of the strength of your business is the size of your engaged email list. Now, today we're not going to be talking about engagement. We're going to be talking about building your list, but that's only part of the work you have to do. You also have to engage with your list, which I'm going to be talking about in some future episodes. But today I want to talk about list building. And the reason, again, that I want to get this in your mind is that if you're not consistently adding 50 to 100 people to your list a week, you're not going to be growing your business. And we can do some simple math here. If you're adding 100 people a week to your list, that means in a year, you'll add 5,200 people to your list. Let's just call it 5,000. But let's be honest. Some of those people are going to unsubscribe as you email them. Some of those people you're going to go ahead and scrub off your list because they're simply not opening your emails. So even if you're adding 100 people to your list every single week, that doesn't mean that in a year from now, you'll have another 5,000 people on your list. You won't have anything close to that. Now, it's going to depend from person to person, but I think you'd be lucky to still have 3,000 of those people on your list after a year. And so when you start thinking about it, and I'm not someone who believes you have to have a huge list to succeed, but if you're not consistently building your list day in and day out, you're not going to be growing it enough to really grow your business. So it really is that important. And so that's why I wanted to do this episode and really kind of give a very simple refresher on how you go about creating your list. So That's what we're talking about today. Before we dive in, though, this episode, as always, is brought to you by the Online Genius podcast community on Facebook. I love talking, I love bringing this information to you in this podcast. I love when I have guests on, etc. But candidly, what I really like doing is engaging and connecting with people. And I can't do that here. In this podcast, I can talk at you, but I can't talk with you. And that's what I really want to do. And that's what the Online Genius podcast community is about. It's a free Facebook group where we talk about marketing. We can talk about the legal stuff. I will talk to you about beer. I'll talk to you about just about anything because I really do love engaging with people. So I'd love for you to join me. You can do that by heading over to youronlinegenius.com/community. Again, youronlinegenius.com/community. And just make sure you answer the questions that are there when you ask to join, and I will let you in. So with that, let's dive in. And I want to talk about 3 different components to a good list building practice. And the first is your freebie or your opt-in. The second is your opt-in page. And then the third one is your delivery email. And so I in the intro, I said, we're not going to be talking about engaging and nurturing. We kind of are. We're going to talk about that very first email because it's an important email that you need to be doing right. So again, those are the 3 components you need to be thinking about. What is your freebie that you're going to give people? What does your opt-in page look like? How do you get a high converting opt-in page? And what do you say in that delivery email? And we're going to talk about each one of those in turn. Let's start by talking about freebies because this really is where everything starts. You've got to have a great freebie if you want people to sign up for your list. And I am a big proponent in giving some more. In my recent episode where I talked about core beliefs, you'll remember one of the things I talked about is kind of being a serve first person, or even a radical giver is what I call it. And so I want to push you that when you're thinking about what freebie to use, remember that general framework. Don't be thinking, am I giving too much? Most entrepreneurs should be saying, am I giving enough? Because generally when you give more, you will get more. And if you adopt the principle that you want someone who downloads your freebie to say, wow, if this is free, I can't imagine how good the paid content is. That's the reaction you want them to have to your freebie. Now, there are different freebies you can use. So I give you that framework to give you this general idea, but now I want to talk about, some specifics. And there really isn't any absolute rule that I could give you about what's going to work and what's not going to work for a freebie, because different things will work for different audiences. There are different options you have. You could do things like a quiz. You could do things like a checklist. You could do a guide. You could do an ebook. You could do a mini course. There's a lot of different options out there. And you may want to test different things. You may have to see what works for your audience and what doesn't work for your audience. You may have some things that work really well at a particular time, but aren't necessarily going to be your everyday freebie. And let me give you an example of that maybe will kind of put that concept quickly in view for you. Last May, so May of 2018, and I guess I did it in April, but last May, the GDPR, the General Data Protection Regulation, was going in effect in the EU. And I created a 3-part training, just a mini training thing that a lot of people would have charged for, but I said, I'm just going to create it and give it away. During that time frame, that was a dynamite freebie because everybody was hearing about the GDPR, and I had this free training that people could sign up for and learn all about it. Now, that's something that these days, some people still talk about it, but it's probably not going to be something that is going to generate a ton of attention. So that's not my primary freebie now, and it hasn't been for a long time. But I give you that example so that if you are in an area and you serve a particular customer or fan, and it's a particular time of year, you might have a limited time freebie. As I'm recording this, it's late July into August. And so if you serve teachers or parents, a back to school freebie might be an obvious thing to choose. That's kind of an example of a time-bound freebie that you're not going to use all the time. But generally, you're going to want to create one freebie that is evergreen and is going to last and you can just have running all the time. But figuring out what that isn't always easy for people. And so I wanted to kind of talk through what makes a freebie a really good freebie for list building. And there's really kind of, I like to say there are 3 different pieces to it. Number 1, it's got to be something your audience wants, not needs, wants. Second, it's got to give them a quick and easy win. And third, it should be tied to what you ultimately sell people. So in other words, it needs to be something along the journey. Now, I want to talk about each one of those things in turn. First, you need to know what your potential customers want. And I stress this because a lot of people focus on what they need. And for example, you know what they need. But if they don't know that they need that, they're not going to react to it. But more importantly, even if it's something they need, but it's not something they want, they're probably not going to react to it very well. So generally, you want to make sure it's something your audience wants. And so that could mean it's the kind of freebie you offer. For example, certain audiences will not want a course, even a mini course. That's just not going to be what they want because they're too busy to consume it, etc. Certain people are just going to want a checklist. That's going to be the kind of thing for certain audiences that it's going to be, a checklist is what this audience is going to want. In my case, in the legal stuff, one of the things I discovered, people don't really want a guide. They want the template. So, those are the kinds of differences that you need to be thinking about. So some of it is about the type of freebie you're offering. But another thing is it's got to be about a topic that they want to deal with. Now, obviously, it's got to be within your area of expertise. So for me, I couldn't just randomly create one that's about beer. Yeah, I guess I could because I do beer. I brew beer and I enjoy beer, but that's not related to anything else. So that's not going to work. But on this first point, just make sure it's something that your audience wants. Now, the second element is that it needs to give them it's got to be quick and easy to consume. Something that is going to take like hours of their time to consume generally is not going to be a good freebie. Now, those types of things can be good value adds later on. So for example, I give people, after they've signed up for one of my legal freebies, kind of down the way in the email sequence, I give them an invite to my training portal, which has, 10 hours of training in it. But that's not the kind of thing most people want to sign up for. They're going to want this short, quick, and easy to consume. So that's why things like cheats, checklists, templates, and swipe files work well. Also quizzes. If you can come up with a quiz that really relates to your business, that's something that's very good because people love that. They get to learn about themselves. One of my friends is, she does web design, but she's going to be launching a course that's kind of DIY web design. And she just created an awesome quiz that is all about like figuring out what your style is. And so if you think about it, that's something that everybody can enjoy. You go through, you answer some questions, and then at the end, you're going to get this report back that talks about what is your style. And then she has a lot of great things in there, like fonts, for example, that you might want to use given your style and things like that. So it's information, quick win, etc. You get why that would be good. Now, all of these things, cheat sheets, checklists, templates, and swipe files and quizzes, they're generally going to do better than more involved freebies like video courses, challenges, and masterclasses, or masterclasses are sometimes called webinars. That's not to say that those things don't work. And in some audiences, a video course, a challenge, or a masterclass might work great. But in a lot of places, that's going to be too involved. And for a lot of audiences, that's not going to work great. So you want something that will generally be easy to consume and they can get through it, let's say in, 20 minutes. And hopefully they can get through it and also get a win within 20 minutes. So I'll give you some examples of things I've used in the past. My ultimate website guide. This was actually a guide I had about, hey, here are the things you need to do to protect your website from a legal perspective. That performed pretty well for a long time because it gave people a bit of knowledge. I don't remember how long it was. Let's say it was 7 pages long, but it was, very quick, very easy to read, and gave them that information. And so it really gave them a way to get information quickly. But recently I made it even better. And I said, forget giving them the guide. I'm just going to give them one of the templates. So now I give people my privacy policy template. That is my standard lead magnet on the legal side of my business. Now, if you haven't gotten that yet and you want to, you can go to youronlinegenius.com/free privacy policy and you can download it free. But that is the kind of thing that is an obvious, wonderful, awesome win because people get a template and within like 15 minutes, they can have a privacy policy customized for their website and ready to go to meet their legal duty. So that's an obvious quick win that I can give people. Now, let me give you another example that I offered in the past that actually was a very good freebie to some extent. It was very good on this first part. I had something called the Ultimate Stock Image Guide. And it talked about, hey, when you're looking for stock images for your business, here are the things you want to look for in a copyright license. But that wasn't really what people liked about it. What people liked about it is I also said, and here are 12 free stock image websites where I have personally reviewed the license and it meets those requirements. So if you think about it, this was a way where people said, hey, lawyers that looked at these, I can use these 12 websites and I know I'm getting stock images that are good and that I can use freely. So that is an obvious quick win, that kind of checklist that's very helpful to them. Now, there was a problem with that one, which I'm going to talk about in a second, but it definitely met that first couple of elements, something they want and a quick and easy win. But that kind of takes me to the last piece of what makes a good freebie. It needs to be tied to what you're going to sell. In other words, you need to think of a journey that people are on to become your buyer and to become your fan. And so they go from someone who is searching for things and they're going to go through various kind of phases, iterations, whatever you want to say, until they finally buy your course, your templates, your membership, whatever it is you sell. You need to make sure that your freebie fits along that journey somewhere. Now, this isn't going to be perfect, right? Some people, maybe it's not going to fit for them, but you want to try to capture something that's going to fit most people. And what I want to kind of stress here is sometimes this means that if you're doing paid ads, for example, you're not going to go for the freebie that will get you the cheapest leads. And even if you're not doing paid ads yet, understand this from a general concept. We're more interested in getting quality leads rather than quantity of leads. Now, yes, you need to get a decent number, but you need to make sure that you're actually creating something and you're actually getting a quality lead of someone who's likely to buy your product. And if your freebie is not aligned with what you're going to sell and you're not showing it to the right people, you're not going to have that happen. And this is where my stock image guide really kind of didn't fit. And with my original offer that I was trying to make, where I had a course where I taught people about copyright law along with doing things like giving them templates, maybe it kind of made sense, but not really, because the value that people get from my legal products is in the templates. It's in basically having easy done for you legal templates. Well, if you think about it, a stock image guide and learning about how to get stock images right, yes, that's valuable information for people, but it's not kind of one of the steps along the process of getting to, oh, I need to buy a template from Bobby. And so that's why it was not an ideal lead magnet. Now, on top of that, during my first launch, my ads manager was really focused on trying to get the cheapest leads. And this is kind of another example of where this went wrong. And so they were targeting people with like a photography interest. In other words, people who were photographers or interested in photography because they were getting cheap leads there. Well, the problem is that's not who I sell to. That's not who my product is made for. So it doesn't make sense. So you've got to make sure it's aligned. Now, I want to talk about my free privacy policy. It, on the other hand, is completely aligned, right? Because I'm giving people the first step. I'm saying, hey, here's a template. And part of the added benefit of that is it's not just something that's related to what they're going to get, but it also helps to start overcoming objections. And let me explain what that means in this context. For my big product, the template library on the legal side, the big objection, or one of the big obstacles or objections people have, is they're concerned that it's going to be too hard, too time consuming to complete this stuff. So that's something that I get people are going to be worried about. Well, giving them my privacy policy shows them that it's not. Because anyone who's gotten one of my templates will tell you they are dummy proof. Literally, that's what, one of my customers said in a testimonial, that they are dummy proof. They're simple. I have these videos that clearly explain how you customize them. It is simple and no one has trouble understanding it. And so by giving them that first template for free, I'm proving to them, hey, this is something you can do. This is not complicated. It's not overwhelming. You'll be able to get it done yourself. So that's where it's aligned with the product and overcoming an obstacle. Now, another example, my friend Amy Porterfield, she has her signature product is Digital Course Academy. And she has a freebie right now that she is offering that is a digital course starter kit. And it deals with some of the problems that people have. Like, I don't know what topic for my course. So it helps people choose a topic for their course. It also helps people choose a name. It talks through the 5 different types of courses. So you kind of get how it's addressing objections that people might have to buying her course through the freebie. So there is this perfect alignment there. We will drop a link in the show notes so you can grab that freebie if you're interested, but you can kind of see how all of this becomes an ecosystem that fits together. So that's the first part. That's your freebie. It's got to be something your potential customers want. It should deliver a quick and easy win, and it needs to be aligned with what you're ultimately going to sell. If you hit those things, hopefully you're going to have a really great freebie that you can offer day in and day out to get people onto your list. That then takes us to the next piece of the puzzle, which is your opt-in page, your landing page. And this is something that I used to think was pretty self-evident, but I get that a lot of people struggle with it. And so this is something that if you do it right, it can have a huge difference. And let me give you an example of what I mean by this. I always hear people ask, what is a good conversion rate? In other words, people who land on my landing page, what percentage of them should actually sign up for my freebie? And the numbers aren't, there's no magic number that anyone else can use. And it's going to depend on a couple of things. But most of my traffic is coming from paid ads, from Facebook advertising or Instagram advertising. That's how I drive most traffic to my freebie. If that's what you're doing, I want your conversion rate to be at least 50%. And I say that because I know a lot of people who are struggling at 20-something%, but with a couple of little tweaks, you can get up above 50%. And if you think about it, that is a huge change. If you could just double your conversion rate, that means you're going to get twice as many people on your list, or it's going to cost you half as much. Either way, I don't care which way you look at it, but it is a huge advantage. And so I want to talk through the elements of a great landing page. Now, first, I want to talk about a basic thing. Hopefully you know this, but on your landing page, your opt-in page, people should have one choice and one choice only. Literally the only thing they should be able to do is click a button to sign up. They should not be able to see a menu to go anywhere else on your website. They should not have social media buttons, none of that. Their only option should be sign up or not. And I say that slightly, that's a bit of an exaggeration because you need to, from a legal perspective, have at least the privacy policy, but you should also have your terms of use and your disclaimer in a footer menu. But other than that, you should not have any other options, anything else that someone can click on the page. We humans have limited attention spans. If you give us lots of options, we end up messing things up. So make it very clear to people what they are supposed to do and give them an easy way to do it, and that's it. So that's the first basic principle I wanted to talk about. Now I want to talk about kind of 4 elements of a really good opt-in page. First, you need a great headline. Second, you need to focus on the benefits, not the features. Third, your sign up button needs to be above the fold. And last, your page should be clean and simple. And I'm going to talk about each one of these in turn, but I just wanted to give you that starting perspective. Let's talk about the headline. Now, your headline generally needs to hook people right off the bat, or a lot of visitors are just going to leave without reading the rest of the page. And so the headline, when I say this, I'm talking about it'll be the biggest piece of text at the top. It may be over the entire top, or if you have a picture, maybe it's one side of the picture above the other text, but it's the big bolded text. So first of all, it should be very clear that it's a headline. It should be much bigger, bold, maybe a different color. That's not necessarily necessary, but it needs to jump off the page so people read it immediately, because that's what they're going to do. And I want to give you a formula that I think works great for headlines. It doesn't fit every situation, but it often will. And if you can make this fit, it's going to help you. And here's the framework. How to accomplish a result your customers want without doing something they don't want to do, even if, and then have an obstacle. So let me give you an example of that. How to get your legal protection in place without dealing with annoying lawyers, even if the legalese makes you want to throw up. Now, that's obviously a bit of an exaggerated version, but you get the point. So it's how to, and then you're going to put in do something they really want to do. In other words, what is the promise? What is it that whatever your freebie is giving them, what is it going to help them to do? And then you want to say without having to do something else, without having to spend a lot of money, spend a lot of time, something like that. And then even if, and that's to deal with obstacles or objections that people are likely to have. Now, you don't have to use the whole thing. Obviously, you definitely don't have to use the without and the even if. You can often use just the without or just the even if. So you could do how to accomplish a result even if, or how to accomplish without, and that'll be good enough. But if you use this framework generally, it'll work. Now, you can also sometimes use numbers. So like if you had 3 steps that are in your freebie, for example, you might want to say 3 easy steps to accomplish the result they want. So you can kind of replace the how to with 3 easy steps to. People love numbers. Numbers catch their attention as long as it's not 11 steps. If it's 3 steps, 4 steps, 5 steps, you can do something like that and it will get people's attention. So think about that. That's the big piece of the headline. So again, work on your headlines. If you need a resource for something like how to write great copy, I cannot recommend Ray Edwards' How to Write Copy That Sells book enough. I think you can get it free on his website, free plus shipping, or you can go to Amazon and buy it, whichever you want. That's the first copy book I got, and I highly recommend it to everyone. And it has things like headlines that you can practice, but really start working on those headlines. Now, then the next piece is that you need to speak to the benefits, not the features. Now, people, like when they're launching a course or a membership, they've probably heard this notion that you talk to the transformation that the product will deliver. Well, that works not just for courses or products, but also for freebies. And here's what I mean. Nobody really cares about the feature of your freebie. For example, no one cares that it's a 20-page PDF. In fact, if you can give me the same transformation with a 1-page PDF versus a 20-page PDF, I would rather a 1-page PDF. What people care about is how will the freebie change their life. So when you have, like, if you have bullet points where you talk about what's in the freebie or what they're going to get, don't talk about what's in there in the sense of it's a 20-page, it's got 8 steps. No, don't say that. Talk about, you'll learn how to, you'll discover this. So things like that are really talking about the benefit that the customers will get, not the features. That's a shift that if you make that one little shift generally in your marketing and in freebies, in sales, and all of those things, if you make that shift, it will be huge. Now, I want to be clear. When you're selling a product, you have to tell people what's in it. I mean, people are going to want to often know, for example, in my template library, they want to know what are the 20 templates that are in the template library, obviously. But generally, people are going to want to know more about the transformation than they are about the content and the features. So generally speak to the benefits, not the features. The third point is that your sign up button should be above the fold. And if you don't know the phrase above the fold, it's a reference to newspapers that were folded, and anything that was above the fold is considered, obviously, I don't want to say more important, but it's more likely to be seen because some people never turn it over. And in internet speak, when we say above the fold, what we mean is when someone first lands on your page, they will see it. Now, that's not going to be possible often on a mobile device. But you want to make sure that the way your page is structured, if someone comes from a computer, meaning a desktop, they will see the button to sign up without having to scroll down the page. If they have to scroll down the page to sign up for your freebie, you've done something wrong. So make sure it's above the fold. Now, the other thing I would say is don't use a boring sign up now or download now. Use something more, interesting, like grab your free blah or get started with blah, and kind of fill in. You could fill in with the name of the thing or, in my case, for example, I might change it to say, protect your website now, like to get these documents, for example, might be an example of something I could use. So you get the point. You're not telling them to sign up because no one wants to sign up, and download is just boring. So make your call to action specific to the freebie. Now, this is a subtle point, but also make sure that the button jumps out of the screen. Now, I don't want you to have this sense that you should spend a ton of time A/B testing different colors of button. I know there are people who do that who think that matters. What I'll tell you is I don't think that's what really matters. If the button jumps out of the page because it's contrasting, that'll be good enough. So one of the things I often do, because one of my brand colors is this pretty bright orange, I use that bright orange for the button. And at the top of your screen, often that'll be the only thing that is in that bright orange. So it really does pop out of the screen. You get the point. If you have a color like that that's part of your color scheme, just use that as your color for your button, and hopefully it'll work. Now, this then brings me to the last thing I want to talk about a great opt-in page. And this is the concept that less is more. Don't let your personal sense of style or your personal sense of what looks good create an obstacle that will stop people from signing up. Now, I don't even remember what group I was in, but at some point someone, asked for comments or posted, it was a logo more than a landing page, but the same concept. And they had used this scripted font that literally it was a word, that was, let's say 6 letters long, but it took me a minute. And I mean, literally 60 seconds to figure out what it said because the scripted font was so hard to read. And they were doing it because they thought that was a pretty font. Don't do that. Now, I'm going to give you another story that I love telling. This was back when I was a federal prosecutor in Fort Worth, one of the federal defenders. So he was a public defender who represented people. So we knew each other. We dealt with each other quite a bit in cases. He taught a trial advocacy course at one of the local law schools. So these students had to do kind of like present a case to pretend judges and pretend juries. And he asked me to come and sit as the judge. And then the jury was made up of family members of students. So it was not the students who were in front of me, but different people. And at the end, I let the jury, these family and friends, give comments first, and then I was going to give my comments last. And one of the people stood up. He was this very austere businessman of some sort, and he said, well, so-and-so, I couldn't take you serious because you're wearing a brown suit. And a brown suit doesn't convey power. And so he went on, I don't know, for like 2 or 3 minutes talking about that. And after that guy was done, I looked over at the guy in the brown suit and I said, look, I disagree with everything he just said in the sense that to me, a brown suit, it doesn't convey power. But the important thing is that there are people out there who believe that. And so you need to make sure that your suit, whatever it is, doesn't get in the way. And that's why the standard practice for lawyers when you go to court is you either wear a navy blue or a charcoal colored suit. That's about it. I mean, and we do it purely so that people don't notice our suit. And so I give you that story because I think it's a good lesson for your landing pages. If there is something that you're trying to make it creative or pretty or something like that, it can create a problem. Your landing page should basically be something that doesn't give them any friction to sign up. So some general things to talk about. Don't use fonts that someone's going to have to strain to read. I already talked about that. If you're using one and anyone would have a tough time reading it, don't use it. That's generally going to be true for any kind of script, meaning anything that looks like cursive. Second, text should be on a solid background, not a picture. And now the problem is if you don't realize this, like almost all of these pages, they are optimizing and resizing based upon the screen size that different people are using. So it might look perfect for you on your 21-inch monitor, but if someone's on a 13-inch laptop, it's going to resize and it's going to be like over some picture and you're not going to be able to read it. So generally you want a solid background. If you're putting it over a picture, you want to put basically a shadow box behind the text that gives you plenty of contrast. And again, the point generally is you want the person's eyes to go straight to 2 places. 1, the headline, 2, the button. And so you can kind of get a sense, right? If that's what you're going for, you don't need anything complicated. Like my freebie pages generally are a picture, a headline, just in a block sans serif font, and then normally some bullets and then a button. And that's normally it. And so you see it, it's very simple. You can see a picture, so you see what it is. You can see you can see all those other things and boom, you can get it done. No problem. So generally keep it simple. So that's your opt-in page in a nutshell. I'm going to go over those rules again quickly. The first thing we talked about before I even got into the real meat of it, you don't give them options. The only thing they can do is say, yes, I want it, and click to sign up. There's no other menus, etc., other than the footer menu where you have links to your legal policies. Then you have a great headline with the how to accomplish a result they want without something they don't want, even if structure. Then when you have bullet points, when you have any text other than your headline, it should focus on the benefits, not the features. Your sign up button should be above the fold. It should jump out at people. It should be something they see without question. And you should be using a clean and simple design so that you're not creating any kind of friction for people looking to sign up. So that's your freebie and then your opt-in page. Now I want to talk about the first email you send to people. And this is something a lot of people are boring here and just say, here's your free thing. Don't do that. And I've taken different programs where people talk about having, this, one person called it a confirmation email with feeling. Other people have other words for it. But the concept is that you want your email to actually start to set the tone. And that is advice that everyone needs to take, because that first email that you send to people will have the highest open rate of any email you will send, unless you use a crazy subject line sometime later. So don't squander it with a here's your thing message. You want to start building the know, like, and trust factor in that first email. And you want to confirm for them that they made the right decision and all of those things. Now, like I said, a lot of people teach this, but a lot of people teach it in a very amorphous way. And I'm not someone who likes templates all the time, because I think a lot of times templates get us in trouble. But this is one where I think there is a useful kind of template, at least from the context of a structure for the email. And so I call it my catch email formula. Catch because it's an acronym, CATCH. So first you congratulate them. You congratulate them on downloading whatever they just claimed, on getting whatever they did. Second, you acknowledge. And by acknowledge, I mean you acknowledge a problem, a frustration, an issue that's somehow tied to whatever they did. So you're kind of acknowledging that people are dealing with this problem. The T stands for tells me your. In other words, what you're going to say is, hey, so you're going to start with congratulating them. Hey, congrats on grabbing this, whatever your grade freebie is. And then you talk and kind of acknowledge problems. And then you say, the fact that you grabbed that freebie tells me that you're. What is it that you know about them from the fact that they grabbed your freebie? Doing that is something that, people are worried, I think, because they're like, well, what if that isn't true? Well, hopefully you can find something no matter what, right? So if someone downloads one of my freebies on the legal side, I can say, hey, that tells me that you're someone who takes the legal stuff seriously. You're someone who's willing to do the non-sexy work in addition to the sexy work. And that's the kind of thing that makes entrepreneurs successful. So you can kind of see how you can do that. But so you can get to what it tells you. Now, the next C is credibility. So you want to build your credibility somehow quickly. You don't want to spend a lot of time. It could be talking about how you figured this stuff out, or, in my case, it could be that I went to Harvard Law School, or it could be, for example, that you've been featured in XYZ. You get the point. Just something quick to build some credibility. So you want to do that. And then the last H is for hook. And what I mean by hook here is you want to have something that hooks them to want to read the next email you're going to send them. And what I mean by that is, and I'm not going to talk about it during this episode, but you should also have a welcome sequence email. So it's a series of emails that brings people into your world. And so your hook email, or your hook in that first email, should link to the first email in your welcome sequence. And I don't want to get too complicated here. If you're doing a nurture sequence before your welcome sequence, let's say you have a product that they can buy related to your freebie that you're going to send a few emails about that before you go into your welcome sequence. That's okay. In that case, your hook needs to go to the first email in your nurture sequence. In other words, it needs to be something that will make them want to read the next email and open it. So for example, here's one, that I've used before at various times. I said, in my next email, I'm going to tell you how I managed to stay married even after my wife sent me a text that said, why are you sending me pictures of you with random women? You see that immediately that gets people saying, I want to know what that story is. So that's your hook. You want something like that hooks them. It could be that you've got a great freebie. It could be that you've got a great tool. Something that provokes some curiosity, so they're going to want to open that next email. So again, the catch email formula is congratulate them on downloading whatever they did, acknowledge the challenge that people in their shoes face. Say, this tells me build your credibility and hook them for the next email. So congratulate, acknowledge, tells me your credibility, hook. If you use that structure, you will have a good framework to build this first email. Now, depending on, if you have multiple freebies, it may be that you can use a single one of these emails. It may be that you have to slightly adapt it depending on the freebie they download. But hopefully you can do that. I mean, again, if you have multiple freebies that are related, you can do it because you can congratulate them on, by saying, by grabbing the freebie or something like that without using the specific thing they grab. But if you're going to deliver the email, deliver the freebie in the email, just use the catch formula for the delivery email. Now, I can't always do that because a lot of my freebies are in membership sites, so I won't get into the technical side. But if you're going to do actually email them a PDF or a link to a PDF, just use the catch email formula for that email. So that is the last piece. So that's list building refresher. We talked about what makes a great freebie, how to create a high converting opt-in page, and how to create your first email using the catch email formula. If you use these pieces and really start being consistent about it, you will start to build your list on a consistent basis, which will set you up for success. So that's it for this week's episode of the Online Genius Podcast. I'll be back here same time next week with another episode to really help you build your business and set the right foundations to have a successful online business. I'll talk to you then.
Thanks for listening to the Online Genius Podcast. Make sure to tune in next week for more great tips, tricks, and strategies to help you build and protect your online genius.